He was a man without identity, known only by his code name, Spectre. For him, this mission was no different from the dozens before, except, perhaps, for the stakes. The Zervith Empire, a xenophobic race that had risen to power through cruelty and conquest, had enslaved countless worlds. Humans were among their victims. Entire populations had been subjugated, tortured, and experimented on. Spectre's target list was long, filled with names that symbolized centuries of oppression. These weren't just individuals. They were the architects of suffering. As the hatch opened, the Spectre stepped into the alien wilderness, blending into the shadows with an ease that spoke of years of practice. His armor was state-of-the-art, not bulky like the heavy combat suits of soldiers, but sleek, lightweight, and fitted for stealth. Integrated cloaking technology allowed him to disappear into the environment, becoming nothing more than a ripple in the air. His mind was as sharp as his blades, each mission fine-tuning his ability to read a battlefield before a shot was even fired. His target, Lord Zarkin, a high-ranking Zervith overlord known for his brutality. Zarkin oversaw the genetic experiments conducted on enslaved species, particularly humans. Spectre had read the reports. Victims twisted into grotesque hybrids, tortured for science. His cold eyes scanned the jungle, his HUD displaying real-time data from his AI. Zarkin's fortress wasn't far. Spectre moved like a shadow through the alien jungle, every step precise, every sound carefully masked by his suit's sound-dampening technology. He had been trained to be invisible, a ghost in the night, and as he approached the towering Zervith fortress, that training became second nature. The fortress itself was an imposing structure, made of obsidian-like stone and towering over the alien landscape, like a monument to fear. Guard drones patrolled the perimeter, their sensors scanning for any hint of intruders. Spectre observed from a distance, assessing the patterns, calculating his approach. His plan was simple: get in, eliminate Zarkin, and get out before anyone realized he was there. He activated his cloaking field, blending into the environment. His heartbeat slowed as he crept toward the fortress. The entrance was heavily guarded, but that didn't matter. He wouldn't be entering through the front door. Spectre scaled the outer wall of the fortress, his gauntlets gripping the rough stone with ease. He paused as a drone hovered past, its red eyes scanning the area where he had been just moments before. With silent precision, he made his way to a small ventilation shaft near the top of the structure. Slipping inside, he disappeared from view. Inside the fortress, the air was thick with the scent of metal and chemicals. Spectre navigated the narrow corridors with precision, his HUD feeding him intel on every guard, every drone. He avoided them effortlessly, bypassing the tightest security as if it didn't exist. The Zervith had grown arrogant, secure in the knowledge that no one could touch them. But they hadn't accounted for someone like him. Lord Zarkin's chamber was located deep within the fortress, surrounded by reinforced walls and the most advanced security systems in the Empire. None of it would save him. Spectre slipped into the chamber like a wraith, his eyes locking onto his target. Zarkin was an imposing figure, his massive form looming over a console filled with data on his latest experiments. His skin was a sickly gray, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He didn't hear Spectre approach. By the time he realized something was wrong, it was too late. With one swift movement, Spectre drew his blade, slicing through the Zervith Lord's throat in a single, precise motion. Zarkin's body collapsed to the floor, his lifeblood pooling beneath him. Spectre wiped the blade clean and activated his cloaking field once more. Another name crossed off the list. As he made his escape, Spectre's thoughts remained cold, calculating. Zarkin was just the beginning. He had many more to kill before his mission was complete. The Zervith Empire would fall, one leader at a time, and they would never see him coming. The death of Lord Zarkin sent shockwaves through the Zervith Empire. His lifeless body had been found slumped over his console, his throat expertly slit, and no trace of the killer. It was a death they could not comprehend, impossible. In their eyes, their leadership had long believed themselves untouchable, shielded by the might of their armies, the technology of their fortress, and the brutality of their rule. Now, fear gripped them. In the heart of the Zervith capital, Chancellor Vrax, the Empire's cold and calculating ruler, gathered the remaining High Council. Their faces reflected a mixture of disbelief and terror. Vrax, a towering figure with gleaming, reptilian eyes and sharp, angular features, slammed his fist onto the metallic table, the sound echoing through the grand chamber. He could taste the fear that permeated the room, a bitter reminder of their vulnerability. This assassin, Vrax growled, his voice resonating with authority, must be found and exterminated before he dismantles our empire piece by piece. Across from him, Commander Eichel, the Empire's military strategist, sneered. Zarkin was careless, too confident in his defenses. This human hitman will be captured. We'll mobilize the elite guard, deploy our drones, comb every inch of our territories until we find him. He can't hide forever. But Vrax knew better. He had heard whispers of this assassin. Spectre, they called him. His methods were unlike anything they had ever seen. He wasn't just a man with a blade. He was a ghost, moving through their defenses as if they didn't exist. Spectre had become more than a name. It was a legend, a symbol of the slow death creeping toward their empire. And now, Vrax could feel that death coming for him. Unseen, Spectre was already at work. As the Zervith Council convened, Spectre continued his silent campaign. Each new target was eliminated with the same cold precision. Lord Balith, a Zervith overseer known for his sadistic experiments on enslaved species, was next. His fortress, surrounded by state-of-the-art defense systems, might as well have been made of glass. Spectre infiltrated with ease, using the Empire's own arrogance against them. When Balith's guards found his body, throats slashed in the same clean strike, the Empire's elite began to fracture. Panic spread through the ranks of the Zervith leadership like wildfire. Each of them knew they could be next, and none of them trusted one another. They doubled their security, activated all available countermeasures, and began purging anyone they suspected of aiding the assassin. Entire camps of enslaved species were liquidated in retaliation, as the Zervith leaders believed their enemies were hiding among the ranks of their oppressed. Yet despite their ruthlessness, Spectre remained untouchable. He was always one step ahead, slipping through their fingers like a shadow in the night. Frustration mounted, and desperation clawed at the remaining Zervith leaders. Commander Eichel devised a counteroffensive, a massive sweep across the Empire's territories, deploying elite hunting squads and surveillance drones specifically programmed to find Spectre. The skies were filled with drones, their red sensors sweeping every corner of the Empire's strongholds, their soldiers on high alert. The purge continued. Thousands of innocents were dragged from their homes and executed in a futile attempt to flush out the assassin. But Spectre had no intention of being flushed out. He watched from the shadows as the Zervith burned their own worlds in their desperation, using the chaos to move deeper into their infrastructure. While the Empire clawed at itself, Spectre operated with surgical precision, severing its most vital organs. Each target fell like a domino, unraveling the web of control that held their reign together. What the Zervith couldn't see, what they refused to acknowledge, was that Spectre was already inside their heart. He had infiltrated their highest ranks, listening to their plans and observing their fear. He was more than just a killer now. He was their reckoning. And then, during a mission to eliminate another key figure, Spectre made a discovery that shifted his focus entirely. Deep in the bowels of a Zervith stronghold, he intercepted classified information about a shadowy figure within the Empire's leadership. This wasn't just another alien lord. This was a human. Counselor Malik, one of the Empire's most influential leaders, had been working for the Zervith all along. A traitor to his species, Malik had betrayed humanity, helping the Zervith enslave his own kind in exchange for power. Spectre's eyes narrowed as he read the report, anger boiling beneath his icy exterior. This betrayal was deeper than he had imagined. It was no longer just about dismantling the Zervith Empire. Spectre's mission had become personal. The traitor would pay for his crimes. With each assassination, the Zervith had grown more desperate. But now, with the revelation of Malik's involvement, Spectre's path had taken a darker turn. The once unstoppable Zervith Empire was on the brink of collapse. Their fear had blinded them, and Spectre would use that fear to bring them down, one leader at a time. And the human traitor would be the last. The corridors of the Zervith High Command were eerily silent. The Empire's leadership had withdrawn into their most fortified stronghold, believing they could escape the ghost that hunted them. Spectre was already inside. After discovering that Counselor Malik, a human traitor, had been aiding the Zervith in enslaving his own species, Spectre's mission had shifted. His focus now lay squarely on the man who had sold out humanity for power. Malik had used his knowledge of Earth's defenses and human psychology to help the Zervith tighten their grip on enslaved worlds, his betrayal going deeper than anyone could have imagined. He had orchestrated some of the worst atrocities, including the mass experimentation on human captives. Spectre's breath was steady as he crouched in the shadows, watching as Zervith soldiers passed by, completely unaware of the danger lurking in their midst. His cloaking field hummed softly, rendering him invisible to their sensors, his heartbeat barely above a whisper. Every step he took was calculated, every movement a testament to his mastery of stealth and precision. This would be the final strike, the death blow that would unravel the Empire. Counselor Malik sat in his private chamber, surrounded by the opulence he had purchased with blood. He was reviewing data on the hunt for Spectre, his face etched with frustration. The Zervith elite had grown paranoid, convinced that spies were embedded within their ranks. They had lost control, purging their own to eliminate a threat they couldn't see. But Malik knew better. He knew Spectre wasn't some phantom force. He was just a man who, if cornered, could be killed like any other. But Spectre was no longer just a man. Spectre had been watching Malik for days, mapping out his routines, analyzing every possible angle of attack. He had already bypassed the security systems, their weaknesses laid bare before his intellect. Every step of his infiltration was flawless. Now, as Malik sat in his chamber, isolated but guarded, Spectre moved into position. With a whisper of movement, Spectre disabled the remaining security drones with a flick of his wrist, sending them into a silent shutdown. The room plunged into a deeper quiet, unnoticed by Malik as he tapped at his console. Spectre's eyes never left his target. He had killed alien warlords, military strategists, and sadistic overseers, but this was different. This was personal. He emerged from the shadows without a sound, stepping into the room like a specter. Malik sensed it a second too late, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up just as Spectre's knife pressed against his throat. "You!" Malik's voice faltered, fear and disbelief clouding his expression. His hand twitched, reaching for the console, but Spectre's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Don't bother." The cold steel of Spectre's knife pressed deeper, drawing a thin line of blood. Malik's eyes widened in terror, his confident demeanor evaporating in the face of the assassin he had spent months trying to catch. The human traitor, who had climbed so high by betraying his own kind, was now at the mercy of the very man sent to end his reign. "Do you know how many humans you've killed?" Spectre's voice was low, devoid of emotion. "How many lives you've sold for power?" Malik swallowed hard, his throat trembling against the knife's edge. "I did what I had to, for survival, for a place in the future." Spectre's grip tightened. "You chose your place. Now, I'm choosing your end." In one swift, silent motion, Spectre sliced through Malik's throat, his precision as exact as ever. The traitor gasped, clutching at his neck, but there was no saving him. He collapsed to the ground, eyes wide in shock as the life drained from him. For a moment, Spectre stood over the body, his eyes cold and distant. The traitor was dead, but there was no satisfaction, no triumph. Only silence. The rest of the Zervith Empire was in disarray. Spectre had crippled their leadership, and now, with Malik gone, they were rudderless, broken by their own fear. Spectre knew their collapse was inevitable. The alien elites had grown too paranoid, too desperate to regroup. Their empire would fall, piece by piece, as their enemies on other worlds seized the opportunity to rise up. Spectre had planted the seeds of destruction, and soon the Zervith would burn. With one final look at Malik's lifeless form, Spectre turned and disappeared back into the shadows. There was no need for a grand escape. The Empire was too distracted to stop him now. His mission was complete, but he knew that in the darkest corners of the galaxy, there were still others like Malik, humans and aliens alike, who would seek power at any cost. Spectre's legend had grown, but his work was far from finished. As the Zervith Empire began to fracture and collapse from within, the galaxy would remember the name Spectre, not as a man, but as a shadow, a ghost that brought down an empire built on cruelty and betrayal. And somewhere, in the distant reaches of the galaxy, Spectre prepared for his next mission.